Hi, welcome to Film Fiend. My name is Seb, and today I'm reviewing The Dog Stars. So, The Dog Stars is directed by the legendary Ridley Scott, and it's written by Mark L. Smith, who wrote The Revenant, by the way, and it's based on the 2012 best-selling novel of the same name by Peter Heller. Now, I haven't read the novel, so I don't know about any discrepancies or anything like that, but the plot follows Hig, a lonesome survivor of a cataclysmic pandemic who lives a solitary existence with his dog and a cantankerous survivor he's befriended, who embarks on a journey of discovery and acceptance. So, I'll say straight up that I really like this film. It's had some pretty mixed reviews, but I think that's most likely down to preconceived notions of what it is and what it's trying to be. The trailers made it look like a post apocalyptic action thriller, when in reality, it's much more of a thoughtful, character driven story. So I think the trailers were possibly a bit misleading and have led some people to have preconceptions of what they're in for and what kind of film this is, and so they've subsequently been disappointed because it's much more sedated than expected. I, for one, was pleasantly surprised by the unexpected tone this film strikes, and I think it's kind of refreshing to see in this oversaturated landscape of post apocalyptic stories. Now, Ridley Scott is one of those directors where you know what you're in for in terms of visuals. His technical prowess is unmatched, and his films always look absolutely incredible. They're finely tuned technically, and these days he's known to shoot on like 8 cameras at once, so the continuity is always impeccable and the production design is reliably incredible. But obviously, he's only as good as the script he's working from, so at the end of the day, that's the most important component when it comes to how good his films are and how well they work narratively. This film starts off in a way that is kind of uneven, where you're not sure where it's going or what it's going to be. The opening act has this meandering quality, and it doesn't really find its footing until Elordi's character Hig meets Quali's character Zima. Then it settles, and the true nature of the film is revealed. However, something I really liked is how it lets you sit in the world with the characters. Scott lingers on shots of the plane traversing the desolate landscapes. You really get to breathe in the environment and acclimate to the tone and rhythm of the film. The landscapes are vast and sprawling, and there's loads of stunning aerial shots of the mountainous vistas. Elordi's character Hig makes supply runs in his plane. It's one of those Cessna light aircraft planes, and there's so many incredible shots of him flying around surrounded by beautiful but haunting and empty pastoral scenery. This is where the film excels for me, when the visuals complement the storytelling, because Hig is very much one of those characters who has his head in the clouds, he's lost in his thoughts, his mind is clouded by his past, and he's longing for some comfort and tranquility. And there's these moments where he turns the plane's engine off and just glides through the skies. They're such beautiful and tranquil moments, and these shots aren't just in there for the sake of it, they represent his state of mind and bolster the character driven nature of the story. The music is really great as well. The soundtrack is full of melancholic, folksy country music, which supplements the setting and the contemplative atmosphere. Hig has this forlorn quality about him. He's constantly pining and longing for the unattainable. And for me, that's what this story is all about. Most of the characters, with the possible exception of Josh Brolin's character, have this yearning for the past. It's a story about how looking back can stop you from looking forward and moving forward. It's about accepting and being okay with what you have and making the best out of what you've got. It's a found family story, and it's a positive film in many ways. It's really uncynical and kind of hopeful. It's a deeply human story about companionship and acceptance. As I said, it has a contemplative atmosphere. It's deliberately paced. It's kind of subtle and understated. And I wasn't expecting that at all, but I really liked its energy. There's this quiet confidence to the pace and rhythm that Scott gives this film. It exists in this tranquil, calming, and kind of comforting modality, which I really enjoyed. Not that there isn't some awesome action sequences as well, because there is. And when they come, they really hit because of how disruptive they are to the ambience. Ridley Scott obviously really knows how to stage an action set piece, and they're, of course, impeccably crafted sequences with very controlled camera work, and they're really tense, thrilling, and visually compelling. Now, there is a sequence in this film featuring Alison Janney that admittedly does feel kind of out of place. For me, it's reminiscent of 28 Days Later, but it's a very jarring sequence that's a bit weird in a way. But I think it just sort of adds to this film's uniqueness and its unusual oscillating tone, because along with the serenity, there's these bursts of violence creating this discordant quality. There's a dissonance to the plot and tonality that I found really intriguing and curious. But it does feel like that scene is from a completely different film, but I still liked it regardless. Also, this film is really not concerned with exploring how the apocalypse came about. Other than the necessary but cursory exposition about the enigmatic virus, it just presents the fallout through the aperture of the characters, rather than examining the broader aspects of the event. It's all about the emotional toll and how each character has adapted to the dystopian world they now reside in. Josh Brolin's character, for example, is one of those who's now thriving in this setting. He's the badass who was probably always secretly hoping an event like this would happen. And Guy Pearce's character is more about just straight up survival, whereas Elodie's Hig is pining for the past, whilst Quali's Zima, although forlorn and damaged, is more concerned with trying to move forward. She's Hig's kindred spirit, but is more positive in her outlook. And there's this telling line where she says, "You don't have a monopoly on grief." Elodie and Quali have great chemistry and make for an endearing duo, plus all the performances are really great and they're really well observed. I didn't expect it to end when it did as well. I was actually anticipating a bit more, so it did leave me wanting a bit. Even though it's not a short film, I could have easily stayed in that world with those characters for longer, because for me, this film has a kind of intoxicating atmosphere, one that I wanted to stay in and one that I really enjoyed being in. I think it's really refreshing to see a film like this with the confidence to be its own thing, to have a different rhythm than what we usually get from this genre. It's a simple film in a way, and as I said, it's contemplative. It's a meditation on loneliness, longing, and letting go. It goes at its own pace and is quite subdued for the most part. I think some audiences might think that it's slow or empty, but I would say that it's subtle and restrained. It's a composed, character driven drama that exists within the framework of a post apocalyptic survival film. It's character over plot, and even though it might not have the most memorable or well written characters ever, it's a charming and sentimental piece of work, which is nice to see from Ridley Scott because that's not his usual modus operandi. It's not for everyone, and unfortunately, I think people have gone in thinking it's a post apocalyptic action thriller, and it's really not. It's something much more thoughtful and ruminative, and overall, I found it to be an unexpected and rejuvenating film. It's a vibey one, and I really enjoyed it. So, that was my review of The Dog Stars. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully, I'll see you in the next one.